Well, hello there. Good morning from my time, which is in the valleys of South Wales in the United Kingdom. And it is still morning. It's nearly 9:30. But good day or good evening or good afternoon, or good night to wherever you happen to be in the world as you watch this. It's the 21st of December. It's winter solstice, which is fab, which means we're at the days of long nights and short day hours are here in the Northern Hemisphere, which means that it won't be long before the days will be creeping longer and the nights getting slightly shorter, which will be lovely. As much as I love the darker, cosier nights, these dimmer days, not so much good for my mood, it has to be said. I still haven't dug out my daylight therapy lamp. But yeah, so it's a bit grey today, and I am hoping to go out for a walk today. I had to go out yesterday. My new glasses, my new prescriptions were ready, so I had to go and pick those up. Well, I didn't have to, but I wanted to, because I prefer to do it straight away rather than leave it. So, to art. Excuse me. This is the card that I completed yesterday, and I just wanted to show you where the problem with it is, or a bit clearer. This side's okay, the bottom bit there is okay, but on this side most of the gold is under the card, and the same, actually the top's not so bad, the top's okay. It's how you see it in the light whether it shows, but it's this side. And I can't do anything to fix that, because if I add any more gold, it's going to go into this border and it will look obvious that it's in the border. So as gutted as I am, I'm going to keep this one as I haven't written any notes in there yet, but I will do, and it'll go in my sketchbook as a reminder of what not to do when I make cards, which is, let's stick it down where you can see it, even if you move things around a bit and get your fingers mucky, Angela. That was the plan. But okay, so, and thank you everybody for your lovely comments. It was really nice that people said how lovely this is. I think you see it in a different way to how I see it. When you work with something up close, I know what all the little imperfections are in it. And whereas most of them I'm happy with because they just show I'm human, sometimes something like this is just, I just couldn't, because it is so noticeable to me. And I wouldn't, I'd be, if I was a crafts person, somebody who made things with my hands, like clocks or machinery or whatever, or built cabinets or whatever, I'd want the inside to be as perfect as the outside, because even if nobody ever saw what was inside or concealed inside walls or whatever, I'd know it was there. I'd know it was there, and it would bother me that perhaps I hadn't done the best I could. And it's the same here. So today I am going to finish off this card, and that will of course start. I love that kind of embossed border, I do have to say that. And you'll hear things rattling around here because I have got where have I put it there? I dug out a couple of ball tools yesterday, and I want to use a slightly wider one. I mean, this is one that's got a wooden handle. The brand name is Paper Mania. I know where I picked this up. I picked this a set of 3 or 4 of them up at a store, a chain of stores, shops in the UK called The Range. And they often have a very good craft section, and if you've got a good one near you, you can actually get art materials, fine art materials as well, at a lower price than other places. But it can vary from store to store. I'm not doing a very good job of keeping this equidistant from the edge, but you know what? That is human error. Everything else isn't. And the other thing I want to do is I do want to just remove this. There'll be enough left for me to see where I am working, but that's my pencil guideline. And this time, so I don't make the same schoolgirl error, I am going to use a smaller ball tool, and I am going to put pattern that goes in that line. Now then, I'm very tempted to do this version of Diva Dance Rock and Roll, because it will echo it in there. And when you do that, it helps to tie designs together. Now this is going to be challenging with this, but I think we could do it. It may take me a little while. And for today's purposes, I may just do part of it. And I'm trying to emboss the inside of these, and it's not working very well. So I think what I might do is just draw in. I think you can just about, you can see what I'm doing, is draw in the bumps in outline and just, oops, leave it like that. And yeah, I'm going to go further in than I need to, because that helps me to keep the momentum going. I will stop on this side because I can see there, but I'm still going to try and alternate them so that I can get some a similar sort of like distance, not that it matters. But that actually will work quite nicely. When that's put on, it will actually peek out from underneath. And what I may do as well is just use this smaller tool to go in that indent, just to indent it further. The bigger the ball you use, the wider the channel you get, but it's less deep. And of course I want mine to be fairly deep, because that's where I want these lines of the Diva Dance to end. Anything that I do that goes over that pencil line will be hidden under the card, and I will make sure it goes well beyond the pencil line as well. So let me just finish this, and I'll do another one with you, because thing about making these indents is they can pop back up just a bit as well, but all will be well and fine. So okie dokes. So I'm going to move. I think I will just finish this one off so it finishes in the corner with a couple of auras that are just wobbly, not with bumps, and I'll do just a couple more here because I can. There we go. So what I'll do is now I'll do one more. So this starts with a spiral, and where the spiral comes round, you stop. Well, I pause momentarily and put some of these, in today's case, these open bumps in for the line to flow around. And it just adds this lovely waviness. But those bump outs, if they're coloured in, they add a lovely intensity of, if you do this in black, then you get that in black. And that's, what was it they call it? Drama? I call it contrast, because I'm all about contrast when it comes to art at times, a lot of the time actually. And then there's no need for me to draw the rest of it, because the I can see if I can just get the light to show it. You've got to get it in the right amount of light and shadow. And of course, naturally, are we going to be able to do it? No, don't be silly. There, possibly. Yeah, there we go. You can see the darker parts are where the indents are. And I think that'd be quite nice because these parts will become coloured. So I'll disappear off camera and do this for a while, and I'll be back in a moment. And here we are, back, all done. And you should be able to see very faintly, if nothing else, the actual embossed pattern. And if I pop the top panel on, you can see that it goes completely underneath this panel, which is what I wanted. Now it's beautiful as it is. I really love this, but I want a colour that will tie in nicely with this panel and that will bring out the embossed design but won't detract from this. And I know what colours I used with Distress ink to colour these, and I used Speckled Egg, Stormy Sky and Broken China. And I actually think that this Speckled Egg, which is quite a soft colour, and it actually is soft, there's not a lot of it seems to be picked up on the cut and dry foam, actually seems to work really nicely. So I'm just going to get a piece of paper here that I can use. It's my scrappy one. I'll keep a clean side and use a mucky side. Just going to remove any dried ink off for this one because I really don't want I picked up quite a lot of Speckled Egg. I'm going to put my glasses back on. There we go. And I'm just going to very gently rub it. Oh, this paper I used, I thought it was the Canson Imagine, but it's not. It's it's that botanical watercolour paper I was using, which is fine. Yeah, paper is paper. But it's got a much deeper indent in it. It's a bit harder working on it, I do have to say that. Push a bit harder to get the indents made, but they are beautifully rich and deep, and they're very tactile as well, and they will be once this is dried as well. You don't want to be messing with Distress ink while it's still damp because you'll leave fingerprints there. So I think I may microglaze this layer, because of that reason, because people will want to touch it. And the microglaze protects the Distress ink from anything there. So it's very subtle, but hopefully you'll be able to see the difference with the central bit. And let's have a look when I pop that on. Now that looks nice. It's deep enough to bring out that embossing, but not so dark that it becomes part of the other particular tile, I think. Right, the one thing I do want to do before I do anything else is go around the edges with the Speckled Egg to get rid of the white card there. And just give that extra little bit of darkness that's required, I feel. It's always nice just to get rid of that white card so it looks like the whole paper is the same colour all the way through. And this will do it beautifully. And I'm tempted just to take a little bit more of this just around that edge where it, right around the very edges, just to darken the very edges up. Like that. Because that will give it a really nice border. Just that extra little bit of ink just right along the edge. And I think that works nicely. I do. I'm happy with that. And nothing else needed. No gold, no glitter, just a little bit of cut and dry. So I now need a big piece of tissue. She says, looking for some tissue. I've got this, which I will use instead. I need some scissors though, but this is it's actually bamboo fibre cleaning cloth, and it works fabulously for all kinds of things. I remembered I got it because this is a function of me. I forget I have things, and remembered I had it a couple of days ago, and I thought, oh, that'd be great for watercolour brushes and the like. You know, any wet brushes, because I've used that in the past. Not a sensible size here, I don't think. We'll be all right though. Perhaps if I can just get it around my finger, I should have used a bigger piece. Just the tiniest bit of microglaze. It goes an awful long way, but it seals the distress ink in beautifully, and it adds a lovely sort of soft and velvety, shiny kind of touch to it as well. So a multitude of purposes here. It also adds a little hint of a sheen, which is lovely, but it doesn't take anything away from the colour at all. It doesn't pick any, it picks little bits of the colour up because I didn't let it dry fully, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Right, so we've done that. Oh, if I'd cut a bigger piece of the cloth off, I'd have popped it in the top, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to dispose of it. Okie doke, so I turn the page over so it's nice and white. You can see that colour really does show through. And now I can attach this. I'm not going to try and use foam again. I'm just going to use straight up glue. And I think that will look lovely. So let me do that with you. And I think I'm going to have to remember to tell myself that I need to keep things like this really simple and not try to get too flashy with gold and what have you, as I did. You know, use gold, yes, but perhaps not in the way that I did there. And because I'm only using glue, I've got a little bit of time here just to wiggle this into place, like so. And the glue I've used will stick to the microglaze. So I'm just going to pop it over. This is my mistake yesterday. We know this, but I'm just making sure this is stuck down because the top layer had warped with all the moisture I'd used to add the other ink. And there you are. It's pretty much centered. It might be a bit off, but it's a lot less noticeable than if I'd used gold around it. Now, I have put a gold line around this one. Part of me is tempted to do it here, but I'm not going to. I think what I do want to do, though, to this one, again, is I'm going to add some microglaze. So let me just tidy my stuff up more. I'll reach for the microglaze again. I'll get that cloth again. Scissors again, and this time, Angela, let's cut out a bigger piece of this, is it? Yes. It's not very clean, but it doesn't matter at all. This microglaze tends not to shift stuff, so here we are, got a bit around my finger, and I think that will help to bring the colours of these out. Ideally, I suppose I should have done this before I did the outer edge, but I think in the grand scheme of things, this is going to be fine just the way it is, to be honest. It is picking up some of the pigment from the black ink, but that's to be expected, because pigment dye inks sort of dye the paper, literally. They do sink in with drying, but some, like distress ink and watercolour and the Ecoline watercolour inks and so on, can be reactive to water even once they've dried. Watercolour, if you've got really good watercolour paper, it sinks into the paper and stays. Then it can be removed, but it can also stain. So that will add just that nice kind of sheen. And then that's done. That's that done. Shall I pop that up there? That is that done. I've still got to mount it on its card base, and this is where I'll be going, oh, I can't use. See, I don't like that on this cream colour. So what I will do later on, I won't do it now, but later on I will find some white card, and I will make my own card base. It's easy enough. This, I'll need it a little bit less than 6 inches, so 5 1/4 inches by 5 1/4 of 3/4, 5 3/4 inches by 5 3/4 should be right. And I'll measure this one as a guide, and I just need to cut a piece of paper that is that wide and twice as long. I wouldn't have been able to use that one anyway, because look, I've got ink on it. So, but I can use this as the guide for what I want, and then fold it in half, and carefully in half, and I'll have a card base. But I could also make my own envelope, but seeming as I've got envelopes ready made, this one, and I've got no objection to putting a white card in a cream envelope. I think what would be lovely is if I decorate this envelope with you, because there is such a thing. There is a hashtag envelope art. So if you really want to get into these things, you can. And it is something that I tend to do when I draw. It's true, I do. I really do. I picked up some pens. So I want to make use of the now I've got a choice with this. I could pick up the Mistletoe, or I could use Diva Dance, and I am so tempted to use the Diva Dance. And then that means I've got a choice then about colour, because we've got black here. But I could do that in blue, because if I'm going to seal this with microglaze, I could use a fine liner. Or I could do it in a green colour. I wouldn't be able to emboss this because it's likely to show through. Let me have a look though, because it won't harm to have a look, because that could be interesting and fun. Let me have a look and see. Does it go through? No, it doesn't show through the other side. So I could emboss. In fact, I think I might. And what I'll do is I'll put a stonking great big one on the corner. Like so. Perhaps another round. It's not all that pleasant to do on here because you've got all the other stuff on the back. By other stuff I mean where it's been folded and glued. But again, if I'd wanted to make my own envelope, I could, and I could leave it unfolded and unglued until I'd done this on the central pattern. Central square. So there's one done. I don't know if you can see. See if we can get it to show. Peer over my glasses. There. But I'll come back in a moment. I'll do these. I think I'm going to do them. I think I'm going to get them. Perhaps. Should I get them to decrease in size? Perhaps I'll just do them around 2 edges and see. Because I'll need stamps up here, which could go on the top of. Yeah, let me have a look. I'll come back in a moment. I'll think about that and I'll explain my thinking afterwards. Okay, back in a moment. And I'm back. I've done the whole of the envelope, but I want to do something on the envelope closure. So again, I'm just going to do a quick diva dance rock and roll. And what I found is that if I make the bump out sort of like a very curvy letter M and quite long in comparison to the length of the path you have to take around that particular rotation. It's not rotation, but circle around the diva dance. Then you get them looking a bit more rose-shaped. It's not something I do, I think, with black ink. I don't know. Could do. But I just thought it'd be really quite nice just to pop one here. There we go. So that's the back where I've got that. And what I'm going to do with this one, simply because it's on the back, I'm going to give it a couple of leaves because it feels incomplete as it is, with some veins in, and with the shorter side I can just flick some in. Just to add shadow in the centre of those veins. Well, in this case it's highlight because we're using light colour. We're using a darker colour of ink to colour this. But if you wanted to do this on black paper and then use something like white chalk or chalk pastels on, that should work nicely. That's another experiment to do. So this is the front. I don't know if you can see it very well, but that's no great matter or problem because I'm going to go back to my distress inks. I'm going to go back to the scuzzy side of this paper, and I'm going to use speckled egg because I don't want this to be too dark again, but I just want to bring these colours out. This paper is likely to grab the colour just that little bit, and the folds on the inside. I've got anything I can pop inside here. I've got a card here, so I should have done this first to prevent those where the paper's glued over to create the envelope. Can you see how I've got the lines there? So I'm going to have to go back and see if I can do something about evening them out. Perhaps not the best choice of colour, but just pop that underneath. No, it's definitely not the best choice of colour to put on this ivory colour. So I'm guessing I'm going to be making an envelope as well for that card, but that's fine. I can do that. I may have some white square cards somewhere. I don't know. But actually they're all been folded. I'm not sure whether it's the result of the embossing I've done or whether it's a function of how the envelopes are made and stored. So, but either way, it's just enough to bring this out. In some ways I wish I'd sort of like thought about this and tested the colour out on ivory, but it works. It makes a mucky green, and of course you can see where the card is now as well. That was a bit rubbish, but you get the idea. And I would definitely, if I was going to do this, which I will do again, I would make my own envelope, and not to make the envelope up into the sheet of paper up into an envelope until I'd finished. You can see the one on the back is really quite nice and sweet. That actually looks quite nice there. I don't know how well you can see it on the screen. Let me have a look and see if we can just get a bit more light on it. Possibly. I don't know. Yeah, you can just about see it there, and here as well. You can see these marks. It's where the folds are, and I didn't think about that. But you can see how it's brought this up. this would have worked equally as well if I'd left it as it was. So just something else for you to try, I think. Very quick. Yeah, I say very quick. It is quickish in that it doesn't take too long. See, no, not a good plan. It doesn't take too long to add the distressing afterwards or whatever. It does take a little while to do the embossing, but it's so worth it. It's the only difference is it's a bit harder on your fingers than it would be drawing it. But oh, I've got hiccups now. So this is where I am with this one, and I'm really quite happily pleased with this, I think, today. I think it's worked out just nice. And I shall mount it. I'm glad I put the microglaze on this. It has given it a lovely feel. And I know that fingers won't damage the finish. But I'm quite pleased with it. In hindsight, what would I do differently? I think I'd use lighter colours. I wouldn't make this as muckily dark blue. The watercolour ink on this was the Canson Imagine paper. It hasn't created a very even kind of finish, but that's okay. There are things I could do to disguise that or to make it part of it, such as using very fine gold paint to put some, gold pen to put something on there. I'm not going to do it now because I put the microglaze on, but I do like this pale embossed background. I can actually see me making lots of cards with this idea, or lots of things, because it is just a different way of doing the same thing. And if I use the small ball, the smallest ball, there's hardly any more pressures needed than if you are writing or drawing with a pen. So I hope you've enjoyed this one, and it's similar to, but a bit different too, because I did look at envelope art. And if I go back to the envelope, you can see that there is a space left here for the address to go on. And if you're going to post it and attach stamps, then I think you'd have to use glue to attach the stamps with, not just lick and stick or peel and stick, whichever kind of stamps, postage stamps your country has. We have a mixture over here, but you know. But I would, once everything's finished, if you've coloured it with something like distress ink or chalk pastels, I would seal it with microglaze or multi-medium gloss. Put the stamps on first. Well, no, afterwards would be fine if you use either, I think, as long as you use the right kind of glue. So anyway, there we are. Lots of bits done. So I hope you enjoyed this and that you'll give it a go. As I said, you don't need any fancy instruments. These I had from my days of playing about with Pergamano, parchment craft, and dot mandalas, but they're nail dotting tools. They're actually cheaper than buying the craft versions, and you can go for really expensive versions like the ones from Pergamano, but they're exactly the same as this. They've just got a different handle on. Obviously, if you've got arthritis or anything, then choose paper you want to do this with wisely. The thinner paper, it's easier to indent. This here hardly needed, the envelope hardly needed any pressure at all. And what I found as well is I forgot to use this. This is a tumble dryer sheet. And if you rub that lightly over the paper, it's not to stop static cling. It just lubricates the paper slightly without damaging it. And the ball as well, and just rub the ball in it from time to time, and it runs a lot smoother on the paper. It makes it easier to emboss. There's not so much effort needed. And if you've done Pergamano, a parchment craft, you'll know that it's actually not about pressing as hard as you can into the parchment. It's doing it lightly, letting it rest, come back, and repeating until you've got the intensity of whiteness on the debossed side. That's the side where it's sticking out, which is actually the front. You work on the back with parchment craft. until you've got the right amount of whiteness there or fading out and so on. So it's not about gouging things out, as it were. So I'll leave it there for today, and I'll say thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you back here again. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care for now. Bye-bye.